Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. Good morning to those joining from Africa and Europe, and good afternoon to those joining from Asia. Today's webinar is called Dream Team Builder, and it's part of the Knowledge Web Transfer series webinars. And we're going to get started very shortly. My name is Hermes Ginay. I'm the Partner and Alliance Manager at the World Innovations Forum. This webinar, first of all, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules. There is no need to record the presentation because it's going to be shared with you. But if you have any questions regarding the presentation itself, please feel free to comment them below. And also, if you have any issues, technical issues, please reach out to me or comment it below so that we can fix it at the end. And also the questions, we're going to address them at the end, so there's not going to be any problem for that. So the speaker of today is going to be Axel Schulze. He's the founder and the CEO of Society3 Group AG, and he's also the chairman of the World Innovations Forum Foundation. He's a successful entrepreneur where he's launched 4 companies. The first one has reached revenue of around $5 billion. The second one was close to $1 billion. Axel is a published author, a patent holder, and he's won many prizes, such as in 2015, for example, he was listed as one of the global top 100 startup accelerators. In 2008, he won the San Francisco Entrepreneur Award. In 2006, he chaired the SaaS channel committee in the US, and in 2003, he became an advisor for LinkedIn. Axel has lived his majority of his business life in Silicon Valley, and all of these achievements are attributed to his quest for finding out how the brain processes and creates ideas, which can later on become disruptive to this entire industry segment. We're proud to have him in our team, and without further ado, Alex, please take over this webinar.
All right, Mas, thank you very much, and also good morning from my side. You'll probably notice that we had a little bit of a technical problem this morning, and so I hope you can hear me, see me, and primarily see the screen, right? Okay. So then let me start with the Innovation Dream Team Builder session from the World Innovations Forum. Real quick, here is the almost entire team. There are a couple new team members, which we actually realized this morning is not on this chart, so we have to still update it. We have quite some growth here today. I mean, in the last couple of weeks, so that's a cool thing. And today we do the last session this year of the Knowledge Transfer Series. And let me dive into a real quick snapshot on the World Innovations Forum in 60 seconds. We're building the global space for innovative minds, meaning we believe we can build a community where everybody can participate. I mean, there was, in the ancient history, there was Alexandria, then we had Florence, today we have Silicon Valley, and they're all earthbound locations where somebody has to be. We want to become independent of space and location, a innovation forum, literally in the cloud, in the internet. And so our big picture is that we want to elevate the awareness for human ingenuity and innovation. And we are determined to achieve prosperity for all nations. We realize that when entrepreneurs and ingenuity has been released, that had a huge impact on the nation where that happened. And all today's developed nations have this combination, entrepreneurship and ingenuity. And if this wouldn't have happened back in 200, 250 years ago, the world would look differently. And we also realized that some countries didn't start 250 years ago, but more or less recently, and they also flourished. And so our motive and our objective is to help everybody become prosperer. Members are basically the drivers of the World Innovations Forum, and we're helping business leaders to run innovation projects with better methods, better tools, better KPIs, leading to more success. That's one of the key activities. And helping young people to start a career in this new innovation space, which is actually growing phenomenally. And we see a huge potential for young people to actually dive into this world and become innovative. And we're trying to help millions to actually become creative employees and basically move from today's industrial, routine jobs into creative innovation jobs. That's World Innovations Forum in a split second. A quick recap: we had this year a lot of presentations around the concept of how get ideas created. And it all started with a very disruptive understanding of how the brain actually composes ideas. And we realized there is no serendipity. There is no idea by accident. There's no idea just popping up and being all of a sudden there, which we all, including myself and everybody else, believe that that is the case. But as we can see from this picture here, these golden capsules, these endpoints of the neurons, these cells or organelles, as it medically is called, they're full of chemicals and process chemicals, and these chemicals are not more, not less than emotions, but connected, they can craft pictures. But they cannot craft pictures themselves. They need the inputs because they don't know the world. None of these capsules ever has seen the world. So the brain works in a way that inputs come from our eyes and ears and noses and so forth, from our senses. And then these emotions are actually in a connection of a total of 86 billion of these neurons, compose pictures, compose impressions, compose backgrounds, and compose ideas. But every single idea ever created was a composition of past experiences. And once we understood that, that changed everything in terms of innovation. So at one point in the curve of the innovation development, we realized that the innovation dream team is a critical factor in success. And it doesn't matter which tool you use, it doesn't matter which method you use, it doesn't matter what kind of innovation you want to do. The dream team is a specially composed team of people. And we want to talk about today what kind of composition, what kind of special traits they should have, and how we compose them. So let me start with the dream team composition. So in concert, obviously, we get new ideas much better than if we work alone. And this is why startups and companies experienced that innovation is teamwork. And there's a nice saying, it takes teamwork to make a dream work. Now, with the inception of neuroscience, we got a lot of inputs, what people should and can do, and what their constitution should be in order to make that happening. So mainly in the past, we had experts. So the research development and R&D centers were either full of engineers, full of biologists, full of physicists, full of scientists. And that means the more we have only more of the same. Now, startups, from sheer desperation, because they couldn't afford an R&D center, they were basically a handful of people, if at all, probably only 2 or 3 in the beginning. So they had to do 2 things. One, in order to make a startup work, they needed a diverse team so that one founder, might be the business person, might be the expert, might be the analyst as a type, needed the other person or people to actually offset lacks of skills or abilities and vice versa. So a good startup team is because of they have to do so many different things, basically already a diverse composed team. Now, what we realized in our research and, looking back into our own 4 startups that we founded and grew, all of our teams, all my co-founders have been a diverse mix of people, and literally diverse. I mean, if I am the kind of the visionary, I was the only visionary. If somebody else was the executor or the finance guy or sort of sales and marketing, that was their strength. And now when we look into an innovation dream team, we realized that when we started to build our companies, we always worked together on all aspects of the company. So it wasn't like, okay, you're the specialist for finance, so go away, you plan, how much money we need, how much we need now, where do we get it from, and so on, and don't bother me with my grandiose ideas. And the salespeople say, okay, you dreamer and you bean counters, I don't care, I look for customers. Never. I mean, we all work together, and everybody was shaping basically the company. And that shaping process is something that the dream team composition from a corporate innovation center needs to inherit. So diversity is the ultimate success factor for any innovation dream team. And it doesn't matter whether it's a startup or whether it's a corporate innovation center. Diversity is the key in this field. So in addition to being diverse and having different characters, there are a couple things like openness, open mindset, and we need to be able to transport in every stage of the ideation process, and thereafter when we go into the market, we need to transport the combined ideas into somebody else. We need to compose a concept that has been basically collaboratively developed and then be transported to our customers. We also transport it to new team members when we hire them. We also transport it to investors or in a corporate internally to the CFO. And so that transport mechanism is another key thing. And we will talk about that a little bit more when we talk about traits. So here we are, traits. Basically, the key cognitive abilities. And those who are not very familiar with cognitive, these are basically our abilities that are not skills. Some people say soft skills because cognitive, this is too scientific. But I think it's good we use the terms because we will, over the next decades, we will learn so much more than innovation or right now. I mean, there's huge movement on the HR side for neuroscience in marketing and sales. So neuroscience will help us so much more being human, a connected entity to a machine. That let's stay with cognitive. So this is our response system, the way we see and act with the world, whether we do it fast or slow. And the cognitive abilities, as I said, are no skills. So it's not that you learn something. However, the very latest research indicated that even cognitive abilities can at least be shaped. So there was a research saying that when you are 35 and older, learning gets extremely hard, and you will most likely not adapt an entirely new, way of doing things. And this is where rejection comes in. We don't want change and so on. But the cognitive abilities, if you're a person that is curious, typically fast responding, typically high level of ingenuity or creative, fearless, social connectedness, and so forth, Then you may even above and beyond 35, no problem, 50, 60, and have still a high level of cognitive abilities that some others may not. So the realization is that it has a lot to do with the way we live. Hence, you have heard it, lifelong learning. Yep, it's a critical part. And learning itself is a critical part. Why? Because learning and ideation, creating ideas, is actually in the mechanism of the brain, the same function. Interesting, isn't it? Because when you learn, you get new experiences. And when you get experiences, the brain connects these experiences with something else that it already has. And that is a cognitive ability when you do this often and fast. So an idea comes off of learning, and learning and ideation is finally actually the same process. And so getting to this list again, curiosity is a key factor. Now, curiosity is something in some cultures, this is considered bad. Don't be so curious. I mean, don't ask all these questions. Don't do this and don't do that. So if it's suppressed already at childhood and continue to be suppressed when they grow up and continue to be suppressed in school, in university, in a job, this is your job, screw it, do your job and then we can talk. That kills curiosity entirely. And one of these cognitive abilities, being curiosity, is vanishing away. Interesting enough, it can be revitalized. It's not very easy. It's not like, snap, but it's possible. Fast responsiveness. I mean, you see something, you think about it, you connect it with other experiences, and you come up with ideas. And a responsiveness might be an idea. It might be an argument. It might be anything else, but it's the same mechanism, idea creation and or responsive. That means that when we get to ingenuity or creativity, then that is actually a part of all these elements. Only we humans, because we didn't quite understand how it's working up in our mind, we use different terms. But let's stay with ingenuity. It's probably even better than creativity because that inherits the term genius. This is the special thing that we can do. And every single idea also ever created is unique. No human on earth, 7.8 billion, has never the same perspective on a certain thing. I mean, very physical. I look at the screen, if people would stand beside me, they would see it from a different angle. So their picture of the same screen is slightly different, which means every experience we have, only we have, and no one else ever in the whole planet, because we're taking a position in this world and we see things from that position, we hear it from that position and so forth. Another cognitive ability is fear or fearlessness. If you're fearful, then you're probably not so good in coming up with new ideas because you might fear that this is a stupid idea, that somebody else had the idea, that the idea is not understood, the idea may not fit, because ideas pop up in the brain through all these connections and they pop up quickly. And if you're fearful, then you're probably not really getting the idea out, and or even worse, you massage it by talking. That means the idea is not the idea anymore and you ruined it a little bit. Social connectedness, openness, sharing, another key cognitive ability. If people that you want to hire for your team are not well connected, are not really open, are not good in sharing, they will not be able to share their experiences and their ideas in its original form. They're probably not open enough to listen. And just a side note on listening, I mean, when you listen to somebody, about 80% of humans, while listening, already form an argument in the brain, which is a natural function of the brain, because the brain already tries to respond to everything it consumes right away, extremely fast. We're so fast, even though people say AI may be much faster than a human brain. Just one scenario. It takes about 1 million pictures for a computer to be able to differentiate a cow and a dog. And it takes probably 100 million pictures for a computer or an AI system to differentiate all the animals on Earth. Now, if you have kids or had kids or have kids in your vicinity, you may have noticed you take a book. What is this? Dog, yeah, dog. What is this? No, it's not a horse. Ah, cat, yeah, cat. And you do this 3, 4, 5 times, and the kids know, okay, it's a dog, it's a cat, is a horse, is a cow, and so forth. After latest, even the slowest of the kids, 10 attempts, they can figure out what is what. Not 1 million, not actually 100 million. So we have a capability, which is a cognitive ability, to actually openly respond to things and rewire every experience immediately. But if we're arguing already in our mind and can't wait to talk about my own argument, then I'm no longer listening. So I learned this way back in time on one of the management schools, and I was fascinated about the ability to listen, and actually also, honestly, my ability or lack of ability to listen, because I was the very same. You know, somebody said something and I was already, wanted to say something. And that has changed fundamentally. I can listen to somebody even half an hour without saying anything, but I know I had to learn that. Excuse me. And the last thing of a cognitive ability is determination. You know, people who are highly determined to make something happen because they get fascinated. It was curiosity in the beginning. The fast responsiveness from the brain said, oh yeah, this is really cool. The ingenuity that put something together. The fearlessness to, okay, I don't care, I will make it happen. And all the communication, the connectivities and so forth needs still determination to actually make it happen. Because some people say, yeah, that's a cool idea. Really cool, amazing. Oh, by the way, I have to go. I have another appointment and, you know, gone. So determination is the key. And this altogether is something that we call in sum openness and also intelligent. And so the key cognitive abilities is in a way the sum of the level of intelligence of a person. But rather than talking about intelligence and we do intelligence test, I was actually looking recently for some cognitive tests. There's a lot in the internet, but there's still numbers and letters, and you put forms together that are built on older intelligence tests, but there is none that actually tests cognitive abilities on the side of curiosity or ingenuity or your fearlessness. And so we started to build our own tests, but I have to be honest, they're far from being really, really complete and working. But it's an interesting thing that most of our intelligence tests are actually not very intelligent. And there's a lot of people debated. But again, this is one of the key things when you build your innovation dream teams. And I would say actually this is the one key aspect, cognitive abilities. Everything else is gravy. That also means now the reverse of it. How important is somebody who is an expert? Honestly, not important. How important is somebody who's a real, because we're talking about diversity, a real perfectly drilled salesperson? Not important. How important is it that somebody has deep understanding of marketing? Not really important. So it's the cognitive abilities and not the skills. Skills can be learned, cognitive abilities, theoretically not. I mean, there are ways that we get to it, but you know, humanity isn't there yet, at least not completely. That also explains us why these young startups, 23, never seen an enterprise from the inside, can come up with amazing ideas. if they have the cognitive abilities on this list and no experience or almost no experience, they do one thing. They talk to customers and they absorb experiences that they are lacking of through the interview with customers. So again, no skills needed. The only skill is to understand cognitive abilities, and that's maybe a little bit of skill. So now, when we have these dream teams composed, there is a sort of a danger, and that is the leader and follower dynamic. So people want to be leaders, and people don't want to be followers. And if you're intelligent, fearless, determined, fast thinker, and all these elements, you're most likely a leader type character and not a follower type character. Now, on the other side, on the innovation dream team, we need to work together and respect the others. And respect, as we'll see a little later, is another key factor. So how do we do that? Well, we need to come up with a leaderless organization. And this doesn't mean chaos, and it doesn't mean everybody does their own thing. No, it's a leaderless team. And so team meaning all work together. And to do this leaderless is a challenge. I mean, no question. There is this, I think, great example from Zappos when Tony Hsieh, the CEO, took over and he tried to build a leaderless organization, also called holacracy. And what we also need, even though it's leaderless, we need somebody who's responsible for certain things and says, well, yep, I'm responsible. I take that responsibility. And so there are a couple of aspects of managing it, meaning trying to alleviate and remove bosses. I mean, not in a negative sense, but if somebody is a dominant leader in the current and existing organization structure and has a bold personality, then those people are typically not so good in an innovation team. But then there's something interesting we found out. Weak members are also not good because weak members make others dominant. And that is a human behavior that we're kind of analyzing and realizing that we need to make sure that the group is sort of plane level. Everybody's kind of on the same level. Now, if we run the innovation process over time, we will probably grow the team bigger and there will be different responsibilities. But at least in the first 6 months, it's very important that this is a team that has this idea of working together. And Harry Truman, one of the US presidents, had this amazing saying, and what was used over and over again was sports team. It is amazing what a team can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit. That is a cultural element, and that is part of a very good innovation culture. Amazing what a team can accomplish if you do not care who gets the credit, if the credit basically gets the team. And that is what a team leader has to make sure. And when we're in leader position again. So as you can see, there is no complete black and white. It must be sort of a self-managed organism. And organisms have the ability, we're composed of many elements to actually work together. Okay, so moving into entrepreneurial aspects, because that is a question that I have gotten probably the most from C-level executives. So if we get to these powerful, brains that basically they could run their own job, or their own company. So would we lose people? I mean, would we lose the entire innovation team if these guys come in? So maybe we shouldn't go for these bold people. And it was a question about 2.5 years ago. And it actually hit me a little bit because I thought, yeah, I mean, of course they would go, I would go. I did go, I worked for Rockwell And but when I left, and I almost forgot about this, my boss said, yeah, we know we would never be able to keep you. I thought, okay, wow. I didn't follow up with a question back then, but I heard some other thing in a very different context. And that was impossible to employ. He or she is not employable because they run their own thing. I mean, you can't tell them whatever they do. And I had, in my own company, I had one person who was exactly that. He was a product manager and he did his own thing. I mean, one day he actually rented a Learjet to fly journalists from Munich to Vienna for a grand product introduction. No, none of us, and I was the CEO of the company, knew anything about that. He managed, that's a sort of a skill on his own. He managed this without anybody telling and without anybody, you know, of the management level knowing. And for me, initially I was very angry. And then I talked to my partner and he was very angry. And he said, you know, actually, you've got to take care of this guy. I mean, he is not controllable. He's unmanageable. And I said, yeah, I mean, do you think we need to fire him? And he said, no, I don't know. I mean, he's extremely good, but you got to control him. So I walked away from this meeting kind of smiling and said, okay, I was never controllable. And if he is somebody who is not controllable, but still works with us, for us, I mean, that's actually a blessing. And much later, but that was it. Much later, we started to analyze in this context we're talking today, what are the things that make true entrepreneurs who just leave and do their own job. And Andreas, by the way, also left at one point and started his own company. So we realized there are three things. High risk takers. I mean, risk takers to the degree they risk everything what they have, accrued or assembled or aggregated for this idea. They're completely independent. Even if they have family and kids, they would, hard to say that, but they would not, I mean, they do care, but they would not care if the company is in jeopardy. They would focus on the company first because they know the kids will survive. I mean, humans survived wars and all kinds of, I mean, grand trouble. So why not, if I need to go for a week to do something? And involving others to a degree that no one else can actually stop them involving people. Those are typical entrepreneurs. Those are the ones, the fabric that basically a grand startup is built. But all these three elements are not necessarily be needed in a corporate environment. I mean, the risk is taken by the company. The money that flows from the company. And if that goes south, I mean, it's bitter, of course, but it's not my money, so to speak, their money. Independence, I mean, if you say, okay, guys, I have to leave, next week, we can't, we'll need to postpone a couple things and then we continue. Not nice, but it can happen within an enterprise. It probably won't happen in an entrepreneurial environment. And involving is just simply something that also not everybody has and is probably not needed. I mean, to a certain degree, yes. So the innovation team members, they enjoy all the extra safety and all the amazing creativity and be creative and work for and with an enterprise and actually dream about being one day mentioned as one of the key drivers of Mercedes-Benz because they built whatever, the disc brakes or something else, or next generation automobile. So a top-notch innovation team member is automatically an entrepreneur. And by the way, the other way around. An entrepreneur is probably never being a top innovation team member. So there are two groups still, and underneath might be the same cognitive abilities, the same skills, the same traits, the same talents, but there is still sort of a level of diversity. And so the innovation team members know their value after they prove their superpowers. So that's another thing. I mean, oftentimes in the beginning, I mean, when I started the first company, I had this grand vision where we want to go, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is a snap. I mean, there was daily something popping that, oh shoot, so we need to take care of this too. Okay, and we did. But there were also days where I said, why did I do that? Would I do it? And sometimes I would say, probably not. But minutes later, you say, absolutely, and you go on in life. So, so again, there is a risk that some people may leave, and that is a risk that fits into the risk box. But it's not like, oh, if they're really, really, really great, then they will leave. Absolutely not. So in order to keep them, there is obviously a couple of mechanisms, motivation and rewards. And rewards is a key thing, and motivation is a key thing. And you will not find money on that list. There was an interesting research, I think it was not Stanford, it was Harvard, Harvard. That was about 10 years ago or so. So they tested people, the groups of people. I think it was a total, if I remember right, it was like 50 test sets, and each set has, sort of top minds. I mean, smart, intelligent, go-getters. I mean, all you can want or you want to have. Then sort of the mid-range and sort of the laggards, a little bit slower, and they need to be told what to do and so forth. And all three have the same tasks. And the motivational factor was either money or getting a certificate or being part of something and so on. And the test from all groups on average was, okay, those who were sort of need to be told what to do and sort of the lower level humans, so to speak, they were totally focused on money. That was the motivation number one. The top level, zero motivation on money. I mean, nada, didn't interest, but you could motivate them with rewards like, if they can be part of the company, get shares, that was something, because their motivation is not having the share that is today value X, but being part of something that can grow with their help. And so it's even more motivational if they can be part of a company, even though it's just a small percentage or a sub 1%, but it is still a motivation. Having a dinner with the CEO is for them a huge motivation. For the third group, more like, okay, but I don't have to do that, right? So as you can see, motivation and rewards amongst humans are, depending on their wiring and depending on their education and so on, is wildly different. And so when you talk about top innovation team members, consider entrepreneurial spirit, consider stock options, consider staged milestones based on rewards, and become more powerful incentives over time. Recognition is still one of the best additional rewards to people, that they know, okay, it's recognized what I do and other people look at me. And this is not like the ego play. Well, to a certain degree, probably. But the ego, by the way, is a function of our mental setting. We want to make a change. We want to build a better world. We want to make a difference. And if that is recognized, then we achieved that what we wanted. It isn't the Ferrari, because the Ferrari, somebody else is driving. I see it, I like the car. I want it too. That's a me too. But me, it's about me and my person, my intellect, my doing, my engagement. And if this is good, then I am the good thing. It's not the Ferrari that's the good thing. And if that is something we can balance out and realize, then we get to rewards and motivation that drives people to a massive, amount of successes. And it's success that will be obviously your success as a company or as a leader, as a C-level, and so forth. Yeah. So other question I was asked a lot of times is, what is the best working environment for such a team? And people realized, okay, startups do extremely cool stuff very fast. So maybe you need to build a startup environment, take out all the leather chairs and so on, put in raw wood and raw stuff and make a big room and make it colorful and music and have the ping pong over there and a football table over there. Interestingly enough, that is better than the old style, but it's still not what people really, really enjoy. So, a center in South Korea, and I mean, that was jaw-dropping. I mean, I was thinking, no, this is not true. We entered this, and it felt initially like it would be sort of the top of the line company in the world. I don't even want to take a brand. Their C-level retreat and headquarter. But it wasn't the raw wood kind of startup-ish environment, not at all. And so I was wondering, would these people feel well there? But then when we saw the rooms, I mean, there was an experimentation lab for kitchens and kitchen gear and cooking. There was one for video and movie and 3D and what have you. Another one was technical lab, and there was a mechanical lab and so on. Then the rooms were very differently. I mean, people were still like in startup time, lying on the floor with a sleeping bag and were just exhausted from their thinking and working. And so what was interesting was it wasn't that kind of rudimentary, but then everybody could do everything and anything they wanted. And if the team forms, that's what they told us, they find the way they want to live in this environment. So it was absolutely stunning. And so the best environment is basically the environment they want to have versus that you provide. And if you make it super flexible, that's a good thing. What we also realized is some of the biggest downturner as part of the environment is everything that comes, so to speak, from the old world: hierarchy, structures, slow processes, because there's people involved that are hired to do this and that, but only one step after the next, because a second step in between would everything blow up. So you know what I mean. So therefore, let them do their thing, and there is no best practice because they are different anyway. And so if the team forms, they will probably find a way. But obviously, the one thing which is very clear, it need to be inspirational, because they need to get experiences. So they need to find ways to find their experiences. And the last in this series is basically innovation culture. And I have to say, we have worked a lot and still working on this topic, because it's probably the most complex in the innovation space, because it's complex for all humans. We brought it down to 3 key elements. Number 1 is respect. Number 2 is respect. And number 3 is respect. If the team respects each other, I mean, each teammate the other, and that is sort of stimulated by the composition of that team, then you already won. Because the most troubling thing is a diverse team with diverse minds and diverse wiring in their head would call for disrespect. And one of the best diverse teams we saw and we built actually this model over and over and over again is, yes, we still need an expert. We still need somebody from the market. That's typically the salesperson or salespeople. We need the long-term market thinkers. This is typically marketing. We need a visionary that can be anything, comes often from the product marketing end or even from the leadership bench. We need somebody who's able to assemble and navigate the team, sort of the integrator, translates to HR type. And we definitely need somebody from the finance aspect, because when we want to get funded with a product that might be the next, billion-dollar solution within a enterprise, we need finance from the get-go. Now, why should somebody who is a visionary dreamer really love to work with a finance guy who is considered a bean counter? Why should the finance guy, which is very accurate and has a plan where numbers add up in any dimensions on any spreadsheet they ever create, are loving the salespeople, or don't they just bullshit all day long? I mean, it's a language, and so forth. But if we can't get it to respect that each and every of these very different types of humans are the reason why, because of their different wiring in the brain, why this solution can finally become a disruptive, highly groundbreaking innovation. So therefore, we focus so much on respect, because that is the very first step. If that doesn't work, people say, okay, yeah, I understand these guys, we need them too. Disrespect doesn't work. So then understanding that we're very differently wired as a reason for that respect is a key function in the development process of the team. Knowing, okay, these people will be different. Now, if we look at them, the top marketing people, they have an ability and have a wiring where they look into the future. They're a little bit like the visionary. They have also the ability to understand markets and markets dynamics and drive it there. Now, if you drive a good marketing in a market and now you shove the salespeople in and they should close the deals one after the other, nobody knows exactly how they do it. They somehow do it a little bit disrespectful. It's the way they use terms, but no, they have a social ability that only and exclusively salespeople have. Nobody else, because nobody else would close big deals in a series of one after the other if they don't have these special traits. And so helping people understand the different wiring, and everyone has an extremely valuable, critical position in the company. Without that, it would not work. And so there's one thing we came to realize, and I want to share this with you because it's really interesting. Silo building, which we all try to break down the silos. There is not a single enterprise of all the about 800,000 companies that are considered sort of something enterprise, who not have silos and who don't want to break the silos. But nobody knows what the big mistake is done in the organization until we realized it's not an organizational mistake. It's something in us humans. And it has nothing to do with silo building, but it has to do with self-organization. We all organize ourselves. And if we're then in a bigger group and have all the components, actually the dream team theory again, that we need to run this business, then that's what we're focusing on. And we ourselves build silos, and we will continue to build silos. So we cannot try to destroy something that we actually wanted for many reasons. So we have to live with silos, by the way. But what we can do is communication between the silos, and that is actually an innovation that people could work on. And finally, innovation teams must bind and bond to each other and appreciate the difference. So the bonding is extremely important. And if differently wired people bond, respect is the final ultimate request to those teams. All right, so these are basically the topics around the dream teams. What kind of characters, what type of people? For some of you, probably very counterintuitive, because you wouldn't build these teams, regularly. but we've seen it over and over and over again. We work with approximately 1,000 startups by now. And those who really made it had these exact characteristic. And if you look into some of the innovation dream teams in corporates, still a few, but there are a growing number, actually fast growing number of very diverse teams. And they're so much more productive as well. So ultimate question is, how do you interview people? How do you acquire them? How do you attract them and so on? And so there are a couple of things I'd like to share. Obviously, one thing is, if you have an innovative spirit already in your company, share it with the talents. I mean, right away, tell them what you have, tell them what you don't have, tell them what you dream for that you don't have, and let them know that they are the ones, small as small can be, to possibly build $1 billion enterprise out of the existing enterprise. And they do things that nobody else could do so far. Don't be silly and think, oh, no, we need to be strong. They need to be hopefully getting the job. You would never, ever get somebody who hopes they'll get, I mean, you would get these people, but they would not be your dream team. So let them know that you are depending on them. That motivates them to actually do something extraordinary, because they don't want to be the big guys and just, oh yeah, look at me. No, these people want to make a difference, like I said earlier. And if they can, they will. And if they cannot, obviously, right? So then look for people who have these cognitive abilities that we talked earlier and test them for that. And again, the tests that are out there, unfortunately, are very, very old style. And most of the knowledge that we have, and I shared with you how ideas get composed and how people react to other people and so on. I mean, believe it or not, some of this knowledge is just 5 years old. I mean, most of the companies and their tests and their whole background is far, far older. So there will be new tests, and we're working on our own tests, but I have to be honest, they're not at a stage where we believe they hold for every situation. Obviously, they're available for anybody to use. And then maybe have a 60-second video call with the CEO. And I want to reiterate this over and over again. You hire an innovation team. Innovation meaning groundbreaking or disruptive innovation. They're building something that changes an industry segment, because that is what you're looking for. Massive change, huge competitive advantage that should, almost must be a company or a division that is next to $1 billion value in the next 5 years. Certainly not tomorrow, but over time. And if you're looking for those people and the CEO has no time for that, then if I would have been hired, very interesting, let me consider it, and don't even say, I'm totally not interested. Because if the leader of an organization, let it be 500,000 employees, is not interested on an innovation for their business and not interested to talk to somebody who needs to understand the CEO's vision from the horse's mouth and not from the annual report, no way of getting these people. And this also explains that we're talking about edge level employees who are potentially even entrepreneurs, but for many reasons, probably not. But they don't walk around like, everybody right and left. So what we're doing as an organization, as World Innovations Forum, we not only talk about, but what we do and did is put together training programs, and we will actually help also other training organizations to adopt these trainings, because that is something that we also don't have an ego on. Yeah, we did that. Of course we did it, but we did it because of past experiences. And these past experiences in some are probably 100,000 years of experiences. So we started in January 25 with our first program, Innovation Management of the Innovation Management Academy. That's a 1-week program. We go basically the epic 12 steps of an innovation process, from innovation opportunity discovery. That's the point. Where should we actually start? And why should we do this or that? And we don't know. And who else is in this space? And everybody could all of a sudden come in. Well, first of all, no, they could not come in all of a sudden. They could only come in after pattern. You need to figure out that pattern, and that's done in the innovation opportunity discovery. And then all the way down through, you know, strategy, dream team assembly, needs and dreams analysis, the actual neuro ideation process. And then we go up to bring the product to market, scale it in the market. And then we come back to something that did not exist today, innovation continuum. If you look at Intel, interesting, isn't it? I mean, still silicon-based chips for CPOs, memory, IO devices since, I think, 30 plus years, no innovation. I mean, of course, there's a lot of improvements. I mean, can you imagine a chip like, you know, what is this, a square centimeter, had several thousand, and today over billions of transistors. Is this innovation? Not really. I mean, it's amazing steps forward, amazing improvements. I mean, out of the ordinary improvements, but still not an innovation. Now then there comes, what is it? NVIDIA builds video chips initially, then realized that the processing power is just radically different, and built now chips for AI systems. Intel still doesn't have any today. I mean, I think they claim to have, but you know, it's NVIDIA where you go to. Disrupted the silicon business. Still, we have classic Intel CPUs in our laptops, unless we have an Apple. But yeah, so innovation continuum is the end game, because we need to continue to innovate. And we do this actually, even that, in a methodical way, in a pattern that we recognize when we recognize the whole innovation path. So if you want to join, register, would love to have you. And reaching to the stars like we do always, and just be curious and unleash your ingenuity. I mean, you have it. All humans have it. We're born with ingenuity. We just have been, I don't want to say crippled, but we have unlearned to be crazy and fantastic in its real sense of fantasy. So with that, we're going into 2021. January 20, we have The World is Your Local Market as a next knowledge transfer webinar. January 25, Certified Deep Innovation Design Champion. That's the 1-week program. It's all online, but it's lectured by human beings. So it's similar to what we do in a webinar, but a little bit more deeper and with obviously more experiences and so on. And then continues February, March with more knowledge transfer webinars, running a global innovation project, making any business more innovative. And we should have actually made any bold, because by now, with the experience we have so far, we believe we can actually help any business. I mean, if a baker comes, there is a lot of possibilities for ingenuity and for actually real disruption. I mean, not just baking nicer bread, disrupting the business. And we can do this and see this for travel, entertainment. I mean, we live in a time where entertainment and artists have the hardest time to survive, but there's a lot of innovation we could do. I mean, you know, we all consume stuff still, right? Didn't we? We all like to be entertained, right? We like to have new experiences. So we have to come up with new ways to do that. And if you'd like to join World Innovations Forum as a member, wiforum.org/join. And with that, I'll give it back to Hermes for questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Axel, for this great presentation. Now I'd like to open it up for questions and answers. So there are some questions posted here from the attendees, panelists. So let's start with the first one. Do you suggest a particular mix or say percentage of experts or no experts at all? So this was the first question.
Okay, yeah. So of course, I mean, if we are talking about diversity, we want to have every every aspect of that diverse model in the team. We don't have particular percentages. We're looking for an equal distribution of different types. So if we have a finance guy, somebody from sales, somebody from marketing, somebody from the engineering team or the physicists and so on, if it's diverse and equally distributed, that would be great. Yeah.
You're muted.
Yeah, Hermes, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry. So we have another question. Maybe there are standards, but how do you suggest testing people for their cognitive abilities?
Yeah, so like I said earlier, it's a little bit hard. So that's why we developed our own tests. They're currently at the Blue Column website. We will have them also on the World Innovations Forum website. We'll probably have a couple other runs with experts from that space. I hope that in a time frame, I would say February, March, we have a set of questions or a set of elements in the test that we can better test the needed cognitive abilities than we have with current ones, which is mostly on mathematical and visual recognition, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Another one asked is, what is the criteria to join the World Innovation Forum?
There is no real criteria, I have to say. I mean, there is on the wiforum.org/join, there's a questionnaire. We would like to know a little bit what you want or what you expect, what you can contribute and what you need. And I think all you need to understand, we're not a service organization, meaning, okay, I pay a membership fee and then I get that for it. The fees are basically to run the operation, to run everything that we do. And what you get is basically and this is the ability that you have, what you build with other members as a team. This might be awareness for something. This might be actually a program. This might be a webinar. This might be a training class. This may be an initiative in the market. Like one of our members, he started the Innovate Fighting Pandemic initiative. And so these things can be done. And so that's what you also can expect. But since we're small and still young, I mean, we're just a year old now, you know, we will need to grow more membership to get more funded and can do more. But it's all up to us together how much we can do. And so Ingenuity will help us do amazing things, even with a very little budget. Yeah.
Okay. Another one, is the team assembly part of the training you mentioned in January? How is that going to be possible, achieved, etc.?
No, can you repeat the question? I didn't
Yeah,
quite.
Sure. Is the team assembly part of the training in January?
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. So the team assembly is part of the training. Yeah. It's one of the 12 key elements.
Okay. Do you see that an innovation team stays with the product until the market entry, or is that going to be even better?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We weren't sure in the very early days. Today we see it a little bit more clearly. The answer is yes, and it has again to do with kind of latest neuroscience discoveries. We realized that, or we learned that an idea when it's forming in our mind, 1 million neurons. And if 10 people work together, there are 10 million neurons sort of in exchange, but not constantly. But whenever a question comes up, they can exchange. And the longer and the deeper they work together, the deeper is the collective intellect for that particular project. So if we would rip people out and put other people in, that would be like, we exchange and replace people in a startup, which usually leads to failure. So therefore the answer is yes, they would be together probably until the project is successful in the global market. No?
Okay, thank you, Axel. And we actually have the last one. Do you provide consulting for the dream team development? Because innovation culture is itself an epic topic.
Yeah, that's true. So we're not a consulting company, I have to say. We're working and try to work with people who do the consulting services. However, in the very beginning, and we're basically just starting with many of these things. We will provide consulting. We will share everything we learned and all the experiences we had, and we will possibly. So if you, for instance, have a consulting firm, we would even recommend pulling them in so they can be trained while we work together. We like to share our knowledge as good and as fast as we can. So there's no hiding and no super secrets and so on. We see our value in getting the world more innovative. And so, but yeah, in the beginning, we would offer that.
Okay, thank you, Axel. Thank you for this great presentation. I can see that there aren't any questions left. So thank you for this amazing presentation, and thank you guys for joining us in today's webinar and being with us. If you haven't already followed us and joined our groups, please do so. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Also, please think about becoming a member of the World Innovations Forum Foundations, because as such, you can enjoy additional benefits. We'll be hosting our next knowledge transfer webinar series starting in January 19th with the first one, The World is Your Local Market, and we'll follow up with you by email and include a registration link, which will be the presentation itself and the video recordings. Thank you a lot, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, maybe one more, as I just saw there's one more question. Yeah. What do you think about hiring a fresh graduate as a first employee? Is it a good idea? Yeah, it is a good idea. If people come fresh and have theoretically no experiences, meaning no business experience in a particular field, you don't need any, experience. A graduate coming from the university has aggregated between, sort of 6 months before birth till now, more than 1 billion experiences. This is just amazing. And like I said earlier, this is why startups of 23-year-old can build disruptive ideas that changes the way an industry works. So the answer is absolutely yes. Mm-hmm.
One more question.
Oh, one more question. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I just shared it with you.
What did you share?
So if not,
I will ask that question. Yes, we got one question from Giorgio. I have something that will change the whole world. I'm an American living in Switzerland. Since our innovation is extraordinary and big, should I try and build a team in the US, knowing all big VCs are in the US? Or if I built a team here in Switzerland, wouldn't that be a problem to try to move the company and the team later to the States, as VC may prefer that?
Yeah, it's a little bit off topic, so to speak. But let us go back to this, because there is way more involved than just a yes or no, but happy to answer it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so thank you, Axel, for this great presentation again, and thank you all for joining us in today's webinar. The next webinar is going to be on January 19th. The word is your local market, and we'll follow up with you with the registration link and the presentation itself and the recordings. Thank you, everybody, and please don't forget to follow us on our social media. Thank you. Bye.